After attempting a takeover at Trump Tower, some protesters had to be carried out by cops. Roughly 100 people arrested for storming the building, demanding the release of Mahmoud Khalil from immigration detention.
So a massive protest erupted right here at Trump Tower after ICE arrested a Columbia University student activist. And while the protesters claim this is a violation of free speech, the Trump administration is promising to revoke the visas and green cards of non-citizen agitators who embrace views contrary to America's values. Which means anyone who's a guest in this country while simultaneously hating it might not be here for that much longer.
At Trump Tower, it was the latest protest calling for the immediate release of Mahmoud Khalil. The pro-Palestinian activist and legal permanent resident was arrested by Immigration and Customs Enforcement last week.
We have a right to express our opinions, but I refuse to allow my fear to stop me from expressing my First Amendment right.
This might be the first of many to come. It started with Mahmoud, who is a green card, and it might continue with me.
The group came in two groups. In regular civilian attire with their protest gear underneath.
And we just got this new video of Khalil being taken into custody. Khalil, a graduate student, helped lead last spring's protests.
The disciplinary action that has been taken against these students is coming far, far too late.
All of this follows the university's announcement yesterday that some students who stormed Hamilton Hall have either been expelled or suspended. The situation was so bad at that time, the university requested help from the NYPD. And again, you might remember the scene. Hundreds of officers entering Hamilton Hall and arresting dozens of people.
So the gentleman arrested by ICE is now urging his supporters to engage in further protests, claiming he's a political prisoner. But what none of his defenders will admit is that if you're a guest in this country, but you're here stirring up trouble for it, you might be overstaying your welcome. And by using the gift of legal U.S. residency to advocate on behalf of America's enemies and create societal unrest, a person's presence here could be a risk to public safety and possibly national security. On top of that, there are disturbing allegations that the particular protester arrested by ICE isn't just some defiant college student. No, in fact, reports indicate he's worked for the United Nations, the British government, and he even holds a UK security clearance at 30 years old. And he was here in America organizing uprisings on multiple college campuses, not just Columbia where he went, revealing that there could be more to his activities here than meet the eye. And by advocating for further organized resistance against the US government and its president, proponents of his arrest say deportation is justified. Which brings us to the real reason protesters stormed Trump Tower. People who hate America and its allies are heroes of progressives all across this country, and when ICE tries to deport them, they're elevated to martyrdom status. And to many progressive agitators who only care about open borders as well as supporting America's enemies like Iran and Hamas, the idea that one of their own would be deported by their number one enemy, President Trump, is completely unacceptable. And as you're about to see, the protests that took place here might not be the last. So here we are at Trump Tower, which is still open to the public. The president has a residence here. There's also some offices throughout the building. There's a bunch of restaurants down here, including the Trump Grill. And this area down here was completely taken over by protesters who hid the fact that they were protesters by wearing disguises until they were already down here in a critical mass.
After attempting a takeover at Trump Tower, some protesters had to be carried out by cops. Roughly 100 people arrested for storming the building, demanding the release of Mahmoud Khalil from immigration detention. The Palestinian-born refugee who led last spring's Columbia University war protests was arrested last.
So after trying to take over this place, some of these protesters ended up having to be carried out by police. There were 100 people arrested, and they were demanding the release of one particular individual, Mahmoud Khalil, Khalil. But really, he's not just any student. How many students do you know of who've got a security clearance and used to work for a foreign government? And he's the same individual that led the student protests at Columbia last spring, which destroyed part of their college and led to their entire campus being locked down completely before those protests ended up spreading to other campuses throughout New York City, like the New School and NYU. This thing started at Columbia and then spread to a whole bunch of other universities all throughout the city. It's hard to find a college that wasn't affected by this in some way. And this particular activist has been vocal, organizing sit-ins, walkouts, and pushing hard against U.S. foreign policy. For that reason, when he got arrested near his home last week, to his supporters, he became a political prisoner who they say lost his ability to speak freely in this country. But storming a building in Manhattan, that's not exactly peaceful. In fact, that's a direct challenge to law enforcement. People could have got hurt. And proponents of this person's arrest say that those who don't like America shouldn't be able to abuse the gift of a green card, which gives you permanent residency here.
Flash mob protest group Jewish Voice for Peace organized this symbolic sit-in at the president's New York property. The Trump administration claims, without proof, Khalil was arrested for supporting terror group Hamas.
The Trump administration has no interest in Jewish safety. They are
So as you can see, the protesters and anti-Trump New Yorkers are in unison. This is wrong, this man was peaceful, and Trump doesn't actually care about or support Israel. And this wasn't just any protest. It was a flash mob sit-in staged by Jewish Voice for Peace right inside Trump's New York City property down here in the grill portion of the tower. And they didn't just take this area over, demanding Mr. Khalil's release. They were calling it an unconstitutional abduction and urging people to take a stand. But here's where things get messy. The Trump administration says this individual is getting deported because they are a supporter of Hamas, but the mainstream media says they haven't put forth any proof to show that this is the case, even though he's pictured here at a pro-Palestine, anti-Israel rally at Columbia recently. On top of that, Secretary of State Rubio says that this particular individual is a national security threat according to intelligence he received. Now, does going to a pro-Palestine protest make somebody a national security threat? No, it doesn't. But we're told that this individual, who objectively has a very interesting past working with the UN and a foreign government, is a national security threat. But the protesters don't see it that way at all. To them, he's just another one of their fellow students, and getting rid of him is wrong and a violation of everyone's rights, which is why these protesters aren't backing down. In fact, they might even be emboldened by their success getting into this building after outsmarting police.
Police say 200 protesters entered the public building midday Thursday, rallying for Khalil's release.
The group came in two groups, in regular civilian attire with their protest gear underneath.
In fact, the 30-minute demonstration left Mayor Adams troubled.
He literally expressed that.
So the police are saying that this whole thing was obviously well planned and well organized. The protesters, they showed up wearing regular attire, but underneath it, they had their shirts with their messages and all of the things that they were going to bring in to help make noise and take over this area where I'm sitting right now. And now the police are scrambling, setting up calls to try and figure out how this was even allowed to happen. Because Trump Tower, it's not exactly a lightly guarded establishment. Again, the president has a home here. There's police and checkpoints and barriers all over the place. There's even dogs. This also follows the story of the president being hit in the face with a microphone from a reporter that may not have been one of his biggest fans. But no matter how you slice it, this is a big problem. 200 people getting in here secretly without anybody knowing and being able to organize that event. What could they be planning next? Possibly something. They said they're not going to stop with the protests, but that's probably why the federal government is now going on offense against these protesters.
Now, first of all, the federal agents with the Homeland Security, they showed up last night to search the rooms of 2 students on the very same day. The university announced that multiple students have been expelled and others suspended who seized a campus building last spring. Columbia University's president sent a...
So now federal agents are searching the dorm rooms of people at Columbia, something that the university's interim president says that she's heartbroken over, which will no doubt encourage these very same people to continue in their hostile activities. But the same day, the university announced expulsions and suspensions for students involved in taking over various buildings on campus last spring, which was almost a year ago at this point. They've waited kind of a long time to do anything about this. And if the students can take over buildings on campus and challenge the police directly and get away with it, they won't think twice about coming to a place like like Trump Tower and trying to take it over as well. But what's fascinating is even though the university seems to support the activism of their students, now they're finally getting around to stopping such activism, revealing that these colleges care way less about the feelings and viewpoints of their students than they do the millions in federal funding they just lost by supporting those viewpoints. And what's weird about that is there are a lot of Jewish students on campus there, yet nothing's been done to address the fact that they don't even feel safe at a college they're paying to attend. But for months now, it's looked like the university was never going to do a thing about the agitators that took over and caused hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages to their very own school, ruining the experience there for other students. If you go there now, there's barriers everywhere. The place is on lockdown. It's like a TSA checkpoint, the whole place, revealing that Columbia's got a big problem. It's still a place that is harboring folks with radical viewpoints and allowing those viewpoints to cultivate themselves and grow and spread out into the rest of our city. And what that means is what we saw here in Trump Tower just a few days ago could be the beginning of something else. You know something, even though protesters could in the near future attempt to crowd this atrium space here at Trump Tower, it's actually kind of nice. You've got some cafes, there's some green, there's police everywhere, so it's like one of the safest office-related common spaces you'll ever see, and it's bright and it's rather warm down here. But the problem here is the recent protest that took place downstairs in this building wasn't a protest on Columbia that was Columbia's internal problem. No, it was a protest that spilled out of Columbia and became a problem for the rest of the city, putting every New Yorker in danger. And it's probably going to happen again as this protest movement continues to grow and be encouraged by many faculty at some of these very same colleges.
All of this follows the university's announcement yesterday that some students who stormed Hamilton Hall, you might remember this scene, on campus last spring, took it over, damaged the building, and barricaded themselves inside, have either been expelled or suspended.
So now we're getting the full picture of what's going on here. This isn't just about protests anymore. These people destroyed their own campus, and that was just the beginning. In fact, things were so bad at Columbia that they actually begged the NYPD to come in and use some of their heavy equipment to get into the second floor of one of these buildings that had been occupied by protesters and remove them. But these protests didn't stay there. They very quickly popped up at other colleges, with many protesters bouncing between different campuses to cause destruction all over the place. And the biggest problem here is the faculties of these universities, they are not united in their feelings toward the protesters. In fact, at the new school, we saw protests take over a lobby of a building with students camping out in order to make their voices heard, something which several professors at the university joined them in doing, setting up tents right next to those they teach. And what that reveals is there's a civil war going on here at our colleges. The student body's very divided over this issue. The faculty's divided over this issue. Some of the administrators of these schools support what the students are doing, others don't. In fact, you could almost say that what's playing out on these campuses is like a micro example of how the entire city feels about these issues.
This might be the first of many to come. It started with Mahmoud, who is a green card, and it might continue with me.
This is cell phone video of the Saturday arrest of Mahmoud Khalil. It was all his 8-month pregnant wife could do when ICE agents showed up at their front door.
So as you can see, this movement at Columbia, it's only getting worse. The protesters, they're still out there. They've still got their faces covered. And now some of them, who very well may be U.S. citizens, believe that they could somehow be deported because Trump's just that bad of a guy. And you know where we're also hearing similar sentiments? Among those who claim to be immigrant advocates protesting against recent deportations. They're scaring people who are U.S. citizens into thinking that Trump's here to get everybody who doesn't agree with him, or everybody who's an immigrant and not from here. They really believe that that's who's running the country right now. That's crazy. But instead, that's not what's happening. The only people who are facing any consequences here are students with legal residency in America who are using that legal residency to stir up hate in a manner completely inconsistent with America's values, which is what led another Columbia-based student agitator to deport themselves when their legal status was canceled as well.
The disciplinary action that has been taken against these students is coming far, far too late.
A third student, Ranjani Srinivasan, is seen rushing to catch a flight at LaGuardia Airport back home to India. Her visa revoked revoked a week ago by DHS.
We have to draw the line here.
So the protests in Colombia, they're only getting louder, and this other student apparently left the country because she was afraid she could be arrested and detained by ICE if she didn't leave before they tracked her down. But with Homeland Security making arrests and this very same university now handing down serious punishments, you'd think that finally things would start to chill out, but no, that's not what's happening. More protests are planned, not just at Columbia, but all over the city. And these things are going to keep happening as long as the American government pays these radical colleges and supports them while they promote this stuff. And what's being promoted? Well, take a look at this sign right here. It says, billionaires are the real enemy, not immigrants. All of this is open borders. It's a hodgepodge of progressive causes all rolled into one, with people figuring out what their cause is and showing up to one of these demonstrations because their enemy is the same person. And that would be the president, who they don't like, who they can't believe even won the 2024 election to begin with. Do you think colleges that support radical messages and hatred of people because of their ethnicity should get federal funding from our government? Do you think that the right thing is happening with some of these agitators that got the gift of a green card now being removed from our country? Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.